Once upon a time, in a small village, a curious boy named Sam wandered into the woods. He often explored the nearby forest, but that day was different. As he was walking deeper into the trees, he saw a glowing object lying on the ground. He picked it up and realized it was an ancient amulet. Fascinated, he remembered the tales his grandmother had told him about magical artifacts. Excitedly, he decided to bring it home. However, when he returned, he discovered that his village had changed. It had transformed into a bustling town. Sam was feeling shocked and wondered what happened. He was thinking about the adventures he would have in this new world. Long ago, he had been wishing for something extraordinary to happen, and now it seemed like his dreams had come true. That night, he lay in bed, dreaming about the adventures that awaited him in the morning. This part of the story uses the simple past tense. For example, Sam wandered into the woods. The simple past tense describes actions that were completed at a specific time in the past. It is appropriate here as it sets the main narrative and indicates events that happened sequentially in Sam's story. This story is set in the past, and this part of the story has been completed, so we can use the past simple tense. We are also describing things Sam regularly did. For example, he often explored the nearby forest. This next part of the story uses the past continuous tense. For example, as he was walking deeper into the trees. The past continuous tense describes actions that were ongoing in the past. In this case, we're describing an ongoing or long action, walking, that was interrupted by another short action. He saw an object. In this instance, we can use the past continuous to describe the long, ongoing action of walking, and the past simple to describe the action that interrupts, when he saw the amulet. We can also use the past continuous to describe the amulet, which was glowing, and presumably had been glowing for a long time. This next part of the story uses both the simple past tense and the past perfect. The simple past tense, he remembered the tales, he decided to bring it home. Well, these actions are quick and happen sequentially, or one after the other. First, he remembered, then he decided. You may also notice that bring does not change to brought. This is because decided to bring counts as one single action made up of two different verbs, and so the second verb, bring, does not change. We can also see the usage of the past perfect. For example, the tales his grandmother had told him. So the tales were told to Sam long before any of this happened, so we're referencing a point in the past that existed long before this story began. In this part of the story, we can see both the simple past tense and the past perfect tense. So the simple past tense, when he returned, he discovered, these actions are quick and again happen sequentially or one after the other. First, he returned, then he discovered. The past perfect tense, for example, his village had changed, it had transformed into a bustling town. Well, the past perfect tense indicates here that an action was completed before another past action. So it shows that the transformation of the village occurred before Sam's return, providing context and clarity regarding the sequence of events. In this part of the story, we can see the usage of the past continuous tense and the past simple tense, which are often used together. With the past continuous tense, we have Sam was feeling shocked. He was thinking about. So the past continuous tense describes actions that were ongoing in the past. In this case, we are describing an ongoing or long action, feeling. There is also another action occurring in Sam's mind, thinking. Both of these actions are happening at the same time, and so we need to use the past continuous tense to indicate that they're both happening simultaneously. We can also see the usage of the past simple tense. For example, Sam wondered what happened. This indicates that Sam briefly wondered about what happened. It was something that he thought about and then stopped thinking about. This is different from the continuous actions of feeling and thinking, which he continues to do for a long time. In this next part of the story, we can see the usage of the past perfect continuous tense and the past perfect tense too. So the past perfect continuous tense, for example, long ago he had been wishing for something extraordinary to happen. In this instance, the past perfect continuous tense emphasizes the duration of an ongoing action that preceded another past action. In this case, it highlights that Sam's desire for adventure was a persistent wish leading up to the moment he found the amulet, enriching the character's background and motivations. We can also see usage of the past perfect tense. For example, his dreams had come true. This sentence shows the relationship between his dreams, which had existed up until this point, and this particular time in the story. He had been wishing or dreaming for something exciting to happen for a long time, and now, at this point, it seemed to have happened. At the end of the story, we can see the usage of the past simple tense combined with the past continuous tense. So with the past simple tense, he lay in bed, this sentence talks about an action which is now complete. We could use the past continuous tense for this sentence, of course, and say he was lying in bed, dreaming about. But because this is the end of the story, it's more appropriate to end with a past simple tense verb combined with the past continuous tense to allow the reader to envision a future for Sam, whilst also providing a sense of finality to the story. The past continuous tense, dreaming about, shows the relationship between his dreams, which had existed up until this point, and this particular point of time in the story. So he had been wishing or dreaming for something exciting to happen for a long time, and now, at this point in the story, it seemed to have happened. The final sentence ends the story nicely because it allows the reader to think about what might happen to Sam next. In conclusion, using different past tense forms adds depth to storytelling by providing context, clarity, and continuity. The mix allows the reader to grasp the timeline of events and understand the character's motivations, emotions, and the significance of past experiences. The story effectively uses each tense to convey a rich narrative, allowing for a more immersive reading experience.
Irregular verbs in English from espressoenglish.net. Did you know that about 70% of the time when we use a verb in English, it's irregular? Irregular verbs can make you go crazy, but in fact, they follow some patterns. In this lesson, you'll learn groups of irregular verbs that will help you remember them better. The first group is irregular verbs with all three forms identical. These verbs are the same in the present, past, and past participle. One example is put. Present. I always put the milk in the refrigerator. Past. Yesterday I put the books in my backpack. The present perfect uses the past participle form. I've already put the documents in the mail. Other verbs with all three forms identical include bet, burst, cost, cut, fit, hit, hurt, let, put, quit, set, shut, split, and spread. The next group is verbs with identical present and past participle forms. The only different form is the past. Come, came, come. Become, became, become. Run, ran, run. A number of irregular verbs have n in the past participle. These can be divided into 4 subgroups: with o in the past and past participle, with o in the past only, verbs with the past form ending in ew and the past participle in own, and other. Subgroup 1: break, broke, broken. Choose, chose, chosen. Forget, forgot, forgotten. Get, got, gotten. Speak, spoke, spoken. Steal, stole, stolen. Wake, woke, woken. Wear, wore, worn. In this subgroup, the vowel changes to o in the past and past participle. Subgroup 2 has o in the past but not in the past participle. Drive, drove, driven. Ride, rode, ridden. Rise, rose, risen. Write, wrote, written. Notice that the sound of the I changes from the present to the past participle. The present is drive, and the past participle is not driven, but driven. Subgroup 3: verbs ending in EW in the past and OWN in the past participle. Fly, flew, flown. Grow, grew, grown. Know, knew, known. Throw, threw, thrown. Finally, we have subgroup 4, other. These verbs have n in the past participle, but don't appear to follow any other pattern. Bite, bit, bitten. Hide, hid, hidden. Eat, ate, eaten. Fall, fell, fallen. Give, gave, given. See, saw, seen. Shake, shook, shaken. Take, took, taken. Another group of irregular verbs is verbs with pronunciation changes. For example, long E to short E. Keep, kept, kept. Sleep, slept, slept. Feel, felt, felt. Bleed, bled, bled. Feed, fed, fed. Meet, met, met. Lead, led, led. Another group has EA pronounced differently from the present to the past and past participle. Deal, dealt, dealt. Mean, meant, meant. Read, read, read. Hear, heard, heard. Another group is when the long I changes to OU. Bind, bound, bound. Find, found, found. Grind, ground, ground. Wind, wound, wound. Short I can change to U. Dig, dug, dug. Stick, stuck, stuck. Spin, spun, spun. Sting, stung, stung. Two very common verbs, sell and tell, become sold and told in the past and past participle. Finally, we have the verbs with ought endings in the past and past participle. This can be spelled O-U-G-H-T or A-U-G-H-T, but the pronunciation is the same. Bring, brought, brought. Buy, bought, bought. Catch, caught, caught. Fight, fought, fought. Seek, sought, sought. Teach, taught, taught. Think, thought, thought. Remember that the G is silent in these verbs. Verbs with 3 different vowels. In this group, the vowel changes from I to A to U. Begin, began, begun. Drink, drank, drunk. Ring, rang, rung. Shrink, shrank, shrunk. Sing, sang, sung. Sink, sank, sunk. Spring, sprang, sprung. Swim, swam, swum. Finally, we have the completely irregular verbs. These verbs don't follow any specific pattern, so you just need to memorize their past and past participle forms. The verb to be is am, is, or are in the present, was or were in the past, and been in the past participle. Do, did, done. Go, went, gone. Have, had, had. Make, made, made. Thanks for watching English Tips from Espresso English. If you liked this video, please share it.
And now we'll take a look at the past tenses, first focusing on the past simple tense. Here, the past simple tense is used to express completed actions in the past, whether the past be a few seconds ago, or whether many years or ages ago, doesn't matter. To make positive sentences, we have our subject, and the subject could be anything from I, you, we, they, it, he, she. And now we conjugate. We change our verb, most often by adding ed. For the negative sentences, rather than changing the verb, we add the auxiliary verb. In this case, the auxiliary verb is do. So I've changed do to did to indicate the past, and it results in a sentence structure such as I did not work. Now did not is the full form. Obviously, we can contract this into didn't. Here we have did I work. Again, you can see the inversion of the position of the auxiliary verb and the subject to help us create our question. When we use did, we can use it for any of the subjects in our sentence, from I or he or she, etc. In terms of spelling these conjugated verbs, of course there are some issues that we need to have a look at, especially when considering some patterns. So again, we have our y changes to dropping the y and adding ied, and when we have a consonant vowel consonant, we double the consonant in question and finally add ed. These aren't irregular verbs, they're just irregular spellings for some verb conjugations. Our irregular verbs change their form altogether. So a few examples would be changing to was or were, depending on the subject of the sentence, go to went, have to had, give to gave, write to wrote. As previously mentioned, the usage for the past simple tense is when you want to talk about completed actions in the past at a definite time frame. So we have sentences like Mark worked last night. He worked in the past. When was it? Last night. We can also ask questions. When did Mark work? Although the time isn't mentioned in the question, what we're implying is the time will be mentioned in the answer. And by saying when did Mark work, we're indicating that it is in the past rather than saying when does Mark work, which would bring us back up into the present. Now let's have a look at the past continuous tense. This tense is used to indicate that a certain action was in progress at a particular time in the past. We form the positive form by using our subjects, the auxiliary verb to be, plus the verb plus ing, also known as the present participle. So it results in sentences such as, he was cooking last night, or we were cooking last night. In order to form the negative sentence for the past continuous, we add the word not in between the past form of the auxiliary verb to be and our main verb, which here is cooking. So of course we have, he was not cooking last night, and we were not cooking last night. In order to form the question form of the past continuous tense, again we're going to invert a subject and the auxiliary verb. So we start our question with was or were, depending on our subjects, and we keep our present participle form of the verb, which is our main verb in the question. So, was he cooking last night? Or, were you cooking last night? The usage for the past continuous tense is expressing actions in progress at a time in the past. So one example could be, I was cooking at 6 p.m. last night. I was cooking. It was an action that began, occurred, and finished at a particular point in time in the past, 6 p.m. last night. Now, I could also say, I was cooking when you called me. It's the continuation of an action that happened at a particular time. That particular time needs to be conjugated into the past simple tense, as it wasn't continuing, rather the cooking was continuing. Let's now have a quick review of the past tenses. Here we have 4 very similar example sentences, each using a different past tense. This should allow us to be able to look at the differences in usage between these tenses. First example, when I arrived, John cooked. When I arrived, John was cooking. When I arrived, John had cooked. When I arrived, John had been cooking. In the first example, when I arrived, John cooked. If we look at John cooked, this is the past simple. The structure is quite simply the subject plus verb in the past tense. The past tense verb is usually formed just by adding ed to the end of the base form. However, again, there are many irregular verbs, such as go would change to went, be to was or were, know to new. Again, there are no rules for this, and they just have to be learnt individually. The past tense here, as we can see, is used for completed past actions. I arrived in the past, and John cooked in the past. They give us the order in which past events happen. I arrived first, and then John cooked. I woke up, and then I got up. I had a shower, I had breakfast, and went to work. So the past simple is very useful for ordering actions. The second example sentence, when I arrived, John was cooking is in the past continuous tense. Here, the structure is subject, John, the verb to be in the past tense, which is was or were, plus the verb with an ing at the end. The past continuous tense is used to describe an action that was in progress at a specific past time. Here in the example sentence, the cooking was in progress at the time I arrived. This differs from the first example sentence, where I arrived first and then John cooked. In this example, the cooking had already started and was still in progress at the time I arrived. And now for the past perfect tense. This tense is used to talk about a past action and a related past action before that. In this case, we're relating two past actions to each other. We do so by using the auxiliary verb to have, but because we're talking about the past, we need to conjugate that auxiliary verb into the past. So we'll consistently use had no matter what our subject is for the sentence. The other critical part of the formation of this tense is the fact that the main verb needs to be put into the past participle form. Here, we've used a regular verb, to finish, and we've added ed. The results are sentences like, Sue had finished. Negative, Sue had not finished. We can contract had not into hadn't, and we can ask the question by saying, had Sue finished? As mentioned, the usage for the past perfect is to relate past actions that are in the past. So we always add the past perfect tense for the action that happened before the past action that we're talking about. So I want to say that we arrived in the past, but I also want to let you know that something happened even before we arrived. So I use the past perfect tense. Again, our auxiliary verb to have conjugated into the past, as well as our past participle form of the main verb. The resulting sentence could be something like, the concert had started by the time we arrived. Let's take a look at the past perfect continuous tense. We'll obviously be talking about the past, we'll be talking about two actions, and we'll be focusing on the fact that one of those actions had been continuing at another point in the past. In order to form this tense, what we need are two auxiliary verbs. We need our auxiliary verb have, conjugated into the past, so it turns to had. We use our auxiliary verb be, with our present participle form of the main verb, which is the verb plus ing, and be being conjugated into the past as well. So for positive sentences, we would start with our subject. Here it's Sue. Sue had been cooking. Our negative sentence would be Sue had not been cooking. And in order to ask our question, again that inversion of the subject and had, so it comes out, had Sue been cooking? And now the usage for the past perfect continuous tense. It is as follows. Using it to communicate a continuing action in the past up until an additional action in the past. Here we have, Sue had been cooking for 3 hours before we ate lunch. The action that had been occurring up until that point was Sue had been cooking for 3 hours. Before the other action, we ate lunch. In the third example, when I arrived, John had cooked. John had cooked is the past perfect tense. This has the structure subject, here John, plus had, plus past participle, here cooked. Past perfect is used to express the past in the past. In other words, an action that happened before another past action. When I arrived, John had cooked. I arrived in the past, and I want to say what happened before that past time, so I have to use the past perfect. The fourth example sentence, when I arrived, John had been cooking, this is using the past perfect continuous tense. John had been cooking. This has the structure subject, John, auxiliary verb had, another auxiliary verb, been, and then the verb plus ing. The past perfect continuous tense is used to express the duration or continuity of a longer action in the past before another past action. As we can see here, when I arrived, John had been cooking. The cooking had continued for a period of time before I arrived. It doesn't express whether cooking is still continuing or completed. So let's have a look at the 4 sentences together again. When I arrived, John cooked. I arrived first, then John cooked. When I arrived, John was cooking. The cooking was actually in progress at the time I arrived. When I arrived, John had cooked. The cooking had finished before I arrived. And when I arrived, John had been cooking. Expresses a longer action that had been happening up until the time I arrived.
Past verbs are used when using the past simple tense in the affirmative. Past participle verbs are used when using the present and past perfect tenses. Regular verbs. The majority of English verbs are regular. We add ed when they are made into past and past participles. Sometimes, though, we need to modify some parts of them when adding ed. The first group is one-syllable verbs, and these ones they don't change. For example, jump, jumped, jumped. Laugh, laughed, laughed. Look, looked, looked. In the second group, add only d to those regular verbs ending with an e. For example, agree, agreed, agreed. Survive, survived, survived. Die, died, died. The third group, you need to double the last consonant to those verbs ending with a consonant, vowel, consonant. So C, V, C. Just like these examples. Fan, fanned, fanned. Grab, grabbed, grabbed. Rip, ripped, ripped. So we double the last consonant. N, B, and P. The last group is the fourth group. Take out the y and add ied to those verbs ending with a y, just like these examples. Carry, carried, carried. Try, tried, tried. Cry, cried, cried. Notice the y changes to I. Now let's take a look at those irregular verbs. The first group, some verbs do not change, just like put, 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 cost, 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 hit, 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 hurt, hurt, hurt. In the second group, we have similar endings. They replace the D with a T. For example, send, sent, sent, spend, spent, spent, build, built, built. The third group, irregular verbs, have the same O-U-G-H-T endings, like these ones: bring, brought, brought, buy, bought, bought, fight, fought, fought. The fourth group, irregular verbs, have the same en ending in the past participle: beat, beat, beaten, eat, ate, eaten, forget, forgot, forgotten. So en at the end of the past participle. The fifth group change a vowel consistently: a for the past and u for the past participle, just like these ones: swim, swam, swum, begin, began, begun, ring, rang, rung. And finally, the sixth group change consistently in the past with the e, w, and o, w, n for the past participle, just like blow, blew, blown, grow, grew, grown, fly, flew, flown. So now let's practice. Change the verbs into past and past participle. Grow, leave, make, sing. Type, hunt, play, see. Swim, dream, visit, go. Pause the video for 5 minutes and then we'll check your answers. So this will be your key. Grow, grew, grown. Leave, left, left. Make, made, made. Sing, sang, sung. Type, typed, typed. Regular. Hunt, hunted, hunted. Regular. Play, played, played. Visit, visited, visited. Those are regular. Swim, swam, swum. Irregular. Dream can be both irregular and regular. Irregular ends with a T, so dreamt. And regular, obviously, ends with an ED. Dreamed. So then we have see, saw, seen. Go, went, gone. By the way, did you know? The past of the verb go comes from the past of another verb, went, which means to go in a specific direction, Originally, went was the past of the verb went. Now it is wended. Instead, the past of the verb go was yod. People started to use the verbs go and went interchangeably. So after many years, the verb go adopted went as its past form. Today's lesson is on the simple past tense. Okay, like in did you go out yesterday? Or we didn't go out yesterday. We worked hard yesterday. Yes, it's an action that happened in the past and you know when it happened. So it's our yellow star in the timeline. You can see it right there. So, how do we form the simple past? First of all, we need a helping or auxiliary verb. In this case, we chose did. And did, we use did for questions and for negative sentences. So let's look at questions first. Okay, WH question word if you have one, like where, how long, etc., plus the helping verb, did in this case, then subject and then the verb. Okay, like in our example, did you go out yesterday? Okay, that's a good example. Negative sentences. Okay, so we need the subject plus the helping verb plus not plus the verb and the object if you have one. I did not go out yesterday. I didn't go out yesterday. Okay, so what happens with positive sentences? Well, positive sentences have regular or irregular verbs. Okay, so we have the subject for regular verbs plus verb plus ed because it's a regular verb plus object. For example, I danced all night last Saturday. I danced all night last Saturday. Okay, how do I know that dance is a regular verb? Well, we just have to learn them. Okay, the same with the irregular verbs. Irregular verbs, you need to learn them. Okay, by memory. So the formula is subject plus irregular verb plus the object. Like in our example, I went out yesterday. So went is the past, irregular past verb of the verb go. Yes, that's right, go. Okay, what happens with the verb to be? First of all, let's review the verb to be. I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, they were. Let's make an example. I was a student in 1990. They were babies in 1990. Okay, these are positive sentences. What happens with negative sentences? We just add not after the verb to be. I wasn't a teacher 30 years ago. They weren't students 10 years ago. What happens with a question? Well, we just write the verb to be first. So, was he paying attention to my lesson? Were you home an hour ago? And so there we have the simple past of the verb to be. Be careful, the verb to be is special. You don't need did here. Okay, so meaning and use. When do we use the simple past or the past simple tense? to express the idea that an action started and finished at a specific time in the past. What are some common time expressions used with the past tense? So yesterday, okay, last month, last year, last week, ago, a minute ago, in 1980, for example. There are many, many others. So time expressions and adverbs of time. So examples. I saw Maria yesterday. So is the past, irregular past verb of the verb to see. Yesterday is an adverb of time. Last Friday, the students took their spelling and vocabulary tests. So took is the irregular past of the verb to take. They got married 2 years ago. Got is the past, irregular past of the verb get. These actions are over. They are all finished. So English has two types of verbs in the past tense. Regular verbs, as I said before, and irregular verbs. Look at the following list of past tense verbs. Which are regular and which are irregular. Okay, so we have taught. Yeah, that's irregular. Walked. Yes, that's regular. Studied. Regular. Gave. Irregular, very good. Became. Irregular. Cried. Regular. Lived. Regular. Did. Irregular. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Regular verbs are verbs that end with ed, we said. So simple form of past simple, like walk, study, cry, and live. So walk, walked. Study, studied. Pay attention to the y changes to I when you write the past tense. Cry, again, y changes to I, ed, and live, we just add the d, ed, lived. So irregular verbs are verbs that don't end with ed. Some irregular verbs have a vowel change in the past tense. For example, become, became. Give, gave. Drive, drove. Forget, forgot. Other irregular verbs have a different kind of change. Examples: teach, taught. Bring, brought. Leave, left. Hear, heard. Buy, bought. For example, Celia bought a new computer last weekend. And some irregular verbs don't change at all. Cut, cut. Hit, hit. Put, put. Set, set. Like in the example. The children set the table every Sunday. And this is present simple, right? It's not past. Well, it could be past also, but I know this is an example of the present simple. The second one, though, is in the past. The children set the table last night. How do I know it's in the past? Well, because we have the time expression last night. Last night. So, complete the sentences with a past tense verb. Number 1. I was a child, I the piano. Donna, Paris, last month. John, hard, yesterday. My teacher, far, last summer. So pause the video and write your answers. Okay, so now that you paused the video, you have your answers. We're going to check. When I was a child, I played the piano, ED. Donna visited Paris last month. John worked hard yesterday. My teacher traveled far last summer. Great, you did great. Now let's try other 5 sentences right here. So complete the sentences again with the past tense verb. So last week, you, a letter. The students, an English exam. They, a great job. He, his girlfriend at university. Mary, to the city park last Sunday. So pause the video and write your answers. Now that you're ready, let's check them. Last week, I sent you a letter. The students had an English exam. They did a great job. He met his girlfriend at university. And last one, Mary went to the city park last Sunday. So let's look at our timeline first. We have the horizontal line and the vertical line. The horizontal line on the left, we have the past, and on the right, we have the future. The vertical line represents now. So we have 3 yellow stars in the past representing used to. That means that it happened many times in the past. So when do we use it? First of all, it is a semi-modal verb. This means it needs another auxiliary or helping verb to create questions and negative sentences. We use used to talk about things that happened regularly in the past but no longer happens. So it is a routine in the past. There is a lot of confusion between the past simple. I will try to explain as best as I can. In some cases, the difference is very subtle, so very minimal. The most important thing to remember is to ask yourself, did it happen many times? Then use used to. Do you know the number of times that happened? Then use past simple. Let's compare. He used to go to school. He doesn't go to school anymore. But if I said he went to school twice last year, this means that because we have a number of times, we need to use the past simple. Let's look at other examples. I used to go to the library last year. It was my routine, but I don't go to the library anymore. Instead, if I say, I went 10 times to the library last year, obviously we need the past simple because there is a number of times, 10 times. And there is a possibility I still go to the library. So in the first one, I don't go anymore. In the first one, I still go to the library. Let's look at other examples. I used to walk to school last year. I walked to school every day last year. Has the same meaning. So what is the change? The change here is every day. I wrote every day on the second sentence. And I created the same meaning with that used to has. I walked to school last year. I do not know if this was a routine, as I don't know the number of times. So how many times? I don't know. So how is it formed? First of all, we said used to is a semi-modal verb, and so it needs a helping or auxiliary verb. In this case, the auxiliary verb and the helping verb is did. So in this case, I mean used to is did. Interrogative. So we have the formula. WH question word, how, where, when, etc. if you have them. HV means helping verb plus auxiliary plus subject plus used to plus verb. Like in the example. Did you used to speak English 10 years ago? It is the same thing as did you speak English 10 years ago? It has the same meaning. Negative. So let's look at the negative sentence. Subject plus helping verb, not, obviously, plus not because it's negative, plus used to. Note that there is not D there in use. Plus verb and plus whatever it is. He didn't used to speak English. It's the same as he didn't speak English. Now, what about positive sentences? Well, we need the subject, then we need here, yes, used to plus verb plus maybe object and plus maybe time expression or whatever it is next. I used to study Italian at university. I don't study Italian at university anymore. This is what it means. So let's do some exercise. You need to rewrite these sentences with used to where possible. I'm going to pause the video for 5 minutes. You need to make changes or leave the sentence as it is if you think it is the right sentence. So, 5 minutes. Pause the video. Okay, now that you paused the video, I'm giving you the key. Now, the first one is, my brother used to keep snakes when he was younger. Okay, so used to. Number 2, he got his first snake when he was 8. So here it's not possible to change to used to. Number 3, here we can choose. He used to keep or kept them in a box in the garage. Number 4, yes, we need to change. He used to look after them very well. Number 5, they lived there for almost 6 years. Number 6, then he lost interest and he took them all to the local zoo. No change there. Number 7, he used to visit them there once a week. Yes, it's possible to change it to used to. And number 8, I think he went about 9 or 10 times, so reference of the number of times, before he forgot about them. Not possible to change to used to. Well, if you have any questions about this,